Go check out the excellent collection of t-shirts available at popthreads.com and use our discount code Simpsons at checkout to save 15% on your order. It helps out our show and it saves you a little bit of dough. Thank you again for listening to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show, and thank you for supporting our sponsor, popthreads.com. Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as MrMostDaysOff, and this week we are back on track on our regular formula. As much fun as we had last week with our 50th podcast celebration show, it's time to get back to work. And joining me as always on this Simpsons journey, your co-host with the most, Richie theWizKid. How you doing today, Rich?
I'm kind of bummed this week, man. We have to actually work hard today and go back to the way we were doing. We can't just be showered with praise while we listen to everyone tell us things again.
Yeah, we actually have to try and not just let our listeners carry us for the show.
Oh, well, if we must. At least Peppy's going to be along for the ride this time.
I love you, Pepsi.
Peppy. But I guess for now... Whoops. Sorry, I was drinking when I said that. I forgot I got to throw it back to you. See, I don't even know how to do this anymore. It's been so long. For now, I'll throw it back to you. The man, the myth, the $4.95 a minute. It is Miles.
That's the discounted rate. I charge other people more than that. We've got a good episode to get back in our groove to with Brother from the Same Planet this week, which debuted on February 4th, 1993. The chalk gag on this episode is the principal's toupee is not a frisbee.
Well, then you aren't using it correctly.
Exactly. The couch gag on this one I really like. It's got the revolving wall gimmick like you'd see in an episode of Scooby-Doo, where it turns around and the couch the Simpsons all jumped into is now behind the Simpsons' living room wall, and the couch that came out from the other side is empty.
Ooh.
Scooby-Doo-Doo. Scooby-Doo-Doo. We open up with soccer practice where Nelson is smoking a cigarette as I guess he's taking a penalty shot on Bart Simpson, the goalie.
Bart does a pretty good job here, too. Accidentally, but...
Well, he does stop the ball with his face, but it turns out that's a win-win situation because as Nelson approaches Bart, who's now on the ground, Bart excitedly exclaims, "I stopped it!" And Nelson goes, "And I hurt somebody. Ha ha." And they shake hands.
It's about the nicest interaction they'll have with each other.
Yeah, true. The soccer coach then has a very difficult decision to make. He has to pick who's going to get to go to a full week of soccer camp.
It's soccer and acting camp.
It is. Yeah, I think it's like Pele's soccer and acting camp. He does come up with a decision. He's going to send Nelson, who replies, "Aw, thanks, Dad."
This must be before he ditches town.
And it was actually Phil Hartman doing the voice of Nelson's dad here. Just wanted to point that out as well.
Probably be the last time Phil Hartman does it. The few times we see Nelson's dad, it's usually that crackly, drunken voice kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know if he picks that voice up again in the future. It did not say. We'll have to pay attention to that. I believe this is the first time we've seen Nelson's dad, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah. As soccer practice ends, all the boys are going off to sneak into an R-rated film. But Bart has to skip and stay behind because he told his dad that he'd meet him here after practice. We then flash to the Simpsons' home, where Marge and Lisa are on their way out the door, and Marge reminds Homer, "Don't forget to pick up Bart from soccer practice," to which he replies, "I'm on my way." And then we see what he's watching on TV, and "I'm on my way" is actually the answer to the Wheel of Fortune puzzle that's currently on the television.
He goes, "What'd you say, Marge?"
Yeah.
After she's gone already.
Yeah, she's already out the door. What'd you say, Marge? So Bart's just left on the curbside, waiting in the rain for Homer to pick him up from practice. He thinks he actually sees Homer off in the distance because it's a similar-looking car with a luggage rack.
Station wagon with a luggage rack?
And then the woman driving the car does have a very similar appearance to Homer, to be fair.
"I am woman, hear me roar, numbers too big to ignore." I did that almost too well, actually. I don't want to ever do
You
that
did
again.
do that very well. As this car passes by, instead of getting a ride, all Bart gets is a face full of mud. He wipes it off and tries to go take refuge under a nearby tree, and just then it gets struck by lightning, and Bart actually gets knocked back several yards.
Then it flashes back to Homer watching Wings, I think, in whatever room he's in. And I just wanted to point out that this happened once before, and I think it was 3 Men in a Comic Book, where Marge asked Homer to look at what the kids were doing, and he wasn't in the living room. It looked like he was in one of the kids' rooms in a beanbag chair watching TV, and then he looked up in the treehouse. In this episode, it was the same shot where he was in a room that wasn't the living room. There was crusty stuff, so I assumed it was Bart's room watching Wings. And then here in a few minutes, when it cuts back to Bart and then back to Homer watching TV again, he's in the living room on the couch. So, it's a little... It doesn't quite add up all the way. I don't know if he's just, going room to room watching and they're trying to be funny about it, but it looked like almost the same shot from the 3 Men in a Comic Book.
Well, after we did our review of 3 Men in a Comic Book, I actually looked up online for a layout of the Simpsons' home to try to figure out what that room was, and the Simpsons actually have an upstairs TV room that is directly adjacent to the treehouse. So it must be in between the two kids' rooms or nearby the kids' rooms, but they're on the diagram online that I saw. There's actually an extra den upstairs that we've seen a couple of times with the beanbag and a smaller television than they have downstairs. But yeah, I agree. There's some inconsistencies with how exactly these rooms are lined up to some extent.
Wait a minute. So Marge and Homer's room's upstairs, Bart's room's upstairs, Lisa's room's upstairs, and Maggie's room is upstairs, and then there's a fifth room?
It's a huge fucking house. Dude.
Wow.
It really is. It's a huge fucking house.
They could have fit one of those rooms downstairs.
It makes you wonder how they were able to afford it, considering that they had to sell Abe's house to have their money for a down payment. And yeah, there's no way that would have covered it. But I also want to point out that Homer was not watching Wings. He was actually watching television, and an ad for Wings came on, and it said, "Next up on Wings, no one cares."
Very true, by the way. Sorry to alienate the Wings fans out there.
Right, for all of our loyal listeners who also just are in love with Wings, we're so sorry. But the commentary actually pointed out that whenever they have jokes like this that are just a little bit snarkier than they usually do, it's often a sign that they were very, very tired and at the end of a long day, and they're just trying to find ways to fill time, which was the case they specifically remember for this Wings joke.
Metaphorical fuck you.
Another interesting point from the commentary, which featured Matt Groening, Mike Reese, Al Jean, John Vitti, and Jeffrey Lynch, was that none of the table reads or of the screenings of this episode landed. They all bombed. And everybody was actually really, really worried about this episode because they did not have a single successful any rehearsal of this show. And when it went to air, everybody was very, very concerned that this was going to be an utter flop. But it actually, as we well know, ended up being a very highly praised episode. It's an 8.1 out of 10 on IMDb, which somehow in this amazing season doesn't even put it in the top 5 rankings, but it's still a very, very good episode, and it's just interesting that they weren't able to get that out successfully during the rehearsals, and it just only worked in the one that aired.
Oh man, I remember this episode very, very fondly from when I was younger. Just especially the whole Pepsi thing. I don't know why that stuck with me as much as it did, but I used to run around quoting this episode all the time, and the whole fight at the end we're gonna get to. I remember it so fondly, but after watching it today, it's it was one of those where it wasn't quite as great as I remembered, but it was still a whole lot of fun. And I definitely think we've had some episodes, a couple that are a lot better this season. But I mean, it's still fantastic. This is a lot of fun. It is one of those where I think I built it up a little too much in my mind.
See, this is one that I remember very fondly as a child as well. However, I think this one very much held up. I was actually very impressed with this episode as an adult, and it lived up to my expectations, which were pretty high. I don't think it exceeded them like some of the episodes have, but it absolutely met my expectations. I also think this one was very heavily syndicated in our area. We both would have been watching the reruns of this episode in middle school, high school at the same time in the same area. And I remember this one was on WB33 all of the time.
Yeah, I remember seeing this episode a lot.
Definitely. Bart is now just in dire straits at soccer practice. The storm has really picked up. It's actually got a really funny gag where you see a nun in the background who actually gets picked up by the wind, a reference to The Flying Nun with Sally Fields. And she actually screams out, "This isn't funny!" which I think is a stab at the show concept in general, because The Flying Nun has always been considered, well, it actually has a pretty strong following of fans. It's just considered one of the most ridiculous television concepts there's ever been.
Good for The Simpsons for taking their jabs.
She also randomly explodes upon impact with the mountains in the background, so there's that.
Because, everything explodes, as we learned from 21 Jump Street.
That's absolutely correct. Homer's back at the house, and he knows he's forgetting something. He's watching the TV, and I think it's a baseball game.
No, it's football. It's the Packers. Yeah, Homer was watching the Green Bay Packers, where it was Bartlett Starr. He was retiring, I think it was, if I remember correctly. And all the fans started going, Bart! 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 And then our favorite Bart Simpson used his beast-controlling powers to get Santa's little helper to start saying Bart. And then I think Magical Maggie even threw in some magic there, or Jedi power, so that she could actually burp the word Bart. So all the Simpsons are using all their abilities except Homer, of course.
Does that imply that Milhouse is pretty low IQ or part animal? Because there's a scene in which Bart is trying to telepathically send Homer a message, pick up Bart, and instead we get a scene where Milhouse is actually writing Tar-Boo Kip, and his dad comes in and starts yelling at him for writing on the walls, and we see in the mirror it's pick up Bart backwards.
It's the whole shinning.
The shinning.
And yes, that does imply that Milhouse is Bart's pet. It all makes sense, ladies and gentlemen.
Homer decides to take a bath so he can think more clearly, I guess. Maybe he'll be able to remember that thing he's forgetting. And he starts to doze off, and he ends up having a very dark dream in which he finally remembers to pick Bart up from soccer practice, but it's too late, because when he gets there, Bart is already a skeleton in a soccer jersey.
Poor dead child.
Homer wakes up in the tub with a startle, and he sprints out of the house naked to rush after Bart. Lisa yells out, "Dad, hide your shame!" And I love Flanders' line here. "Hey, homie!
I can see your doodle!" I completely forgot about that line. That was almost up there with "I love you, Pepsi." Damn it, I can't even do it right.
I love you too, Pepsi.
Peppy. Hey, homie, I can see your doodle.
That Flanders line is actually a late addition, and if you look at the animation closely, you can actually see that they just did a freeze frame on the very last shot where Lisa said her line, and then they added the Ned Flanders line in post-production over the long freeze.
Oh, wow, just a quick little cheap trick to get it in there, but it works.
They were just a little bit short, and they came up with a joke and thought it would be a good thing to add in, and I agree with you. I'm glad they did.
Just hearing Flanders say doodle when he's talking about penis. I mean, come on.
Well, Homer is trying to make amends with Bart. He starts by saying, "Oh yeah, I can understand why you're mad. I'm mad too. Here's an ice cream sundae, and let's forget about this." But as he hands him the sundae, he hits a bump, and all of the ice cream lands on top of Bart's head. He then kind of starts to just back out of it. He doesn't really take any responsibility. And he just kind of starts talking about how, we could argue about who forgot to pick up who all day, but how about we just forget about it and move on?
Such a bad parenting moment for Homer.
It's not his finest moment, not even a little bit.
And he's already had some bad ones.
Bart is pissed. He really is just fed up with Homer. I think even at this point has already said he's a bad father.
Yeah, you don't actually hear him say that, I don't think, but Marge says that Bart said it. And here's the thing is, Bart was actually doing what he's supposed to for once, because typically when his friends come by and they're like, "Hey, we're going to go sneak into this movie," he's like, "Okay, yeah, let's go do it." And in this day and age...
Yeah, it would have been the other way around, him ditching Homer.
This day and age, this would never happen because they'd have cell phones and they'd be able to call each other. It's crazy to think about that, isn't it? This isn't going to happen.
Especially when we get to the B line of this episode. Just think about how much that's changed with the Corey hotline that we'll talk about here shortly.
It's just weird to think of. That all got put into perspective right now. So, freaking 1993, man.
Mind blown, man. The 90s were a hell of a time.
Hell of a time.
Hell of a time. Well, Bart's still steaming, but he's up in his room watching Tuesday Night Live with special host Krusty the Clown.
I like how they actually even threw in, Krusty was talking about Lorne Michaels as well, because Lorne Michaels produces everything, so.
He really does. So there's actually quite a few jokes at Saturday Night Live's expense here, and including the big ear thing that goes on for 12 minutes with basically the whole joke being out in the first 10 seconds.
Ugh, this goes on for 12 more minutes.
And apparently there were actually a lot more Saturday Night Live jokes in here, but a lot of the writers and employees of the Simpsons team were former staff at Saturday Night Live, and ultimately when they had that many jokes in place, it just felt like they were coming off as being bitter, and they didn't want to give that impression. They didn't really necessarily have a great time working at Saturday Night Live. In fact, there's quite a few horror stories coming from a lot of the former employees there. However, they didn't want to give the impression that they were bitter because they're just trying to be funny. They weren't trying to be mean.
Yeah, it's like one of those things when you go out to drink with all your friends when you all work at a restaurant together. You're all talking shit about your job, but you still go back in there every day to do it. So it's just like they all knew too much inside information, and then when they actually laid it all out there trying to be funny, it just made them seem like they're being a bunch of dicks, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So they did cut a significant amount of the jokes at the Saturday Night Live's expense, but they still got a few jabs in there, and that was pretty funny.
Freaking Big Ear family.
We then get a commercial for Bigger Brothers, which is a non-profit organization very similar to the real-life Big Brother, Big Sisters of America. And Bart decides that he is going to call in and let them know that he is actually looking for a father because he doesn't have one.
Oh, and it was such a fucked up commercial, too, where the kid's at his father's grave and it's still open. It's like, my dad died, and they just materialize a new father figure for him out of nowhere.
Oh, it's dark, too, because the kid's sitting there and he's like, maybe he'll come back. And then the narrator's like, no, he won't. Oh. It's so fucked up. But that is how we're introduced to the Big Brother program, and Bart goes full Cockney with his little accent he does, and he even has a little hat and old-timey clothes as he's in there telling about how awful his upbringing was and why he's a perfect candidate to have a bigger brother. And this woman behind the counter takes absolute pity on him and says, I've got a special brother that I've been saving for a kid just like you. And that's when we meet Tom, who rides a motorcycle and even has a custom stamped helmet with Bart's name on it just for him.
And to top it all off, has the best voice of The Simpsons in Phil Hartman.
So, interesting fact about that, this role was actually written for Tom Cruise. This entire episode was created because the Simpsons producers were told that Tom Cruise was interested in doing a guest spot. So they wrote this episode with him in mind, but when he got the script, he turned it down.
So you're saying he had so much semen on his back, and he's such a he's at the fudge packer factory so much he couldn't do it.
Well, the staff of The Simpsons were pissed off, to be completely honest, because for one, they even stated themselves, this is probably the friendliest written guest spot they've ever done in terms of, like, it would have taken almost no jokes at his expense whatsoever, and it would have actually made him look like a really good guy, and they just were completely perplexed as to why he would just all of a sudden decide he didn't want to do the show. Apparently, Tom Cruise was a really big fan, though. He actually had a setup where he was sent a copy of the most recent episode right after it aired, regardless of where he was shooting in the world for whatever movie, because he wanted to keep up with the show. And that even led to further just anger from the staff when they're like, well, then why the fuck did you turn us down then?
Maybe he wanted them to make fun of him. Like, maybe he was expecting a little more jabbiness between the character he was playing.
That's kind of an interesting thought to go that route, but honestly, I think it's just because Tom Cruise is a big old fucking weirdo.
Yeah, he's just a little crazy.
However, there's still a couple of indicators that you'll find that clue you into the fact that it was intended for Tom Cruise. For one, the motorcycle he rides is very, very similar to the one he rides in Top Gun. And during Bart's show and tell, he mentions that Tom is an F-18 fighter pilot.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that does make a lot of sense.
But to your point, I think it's for the better because Phil Hartman ended up taking this role and he fucking killed it. It was a fantastic role and he was very funny in it. That actually brings up another point from the commentary. The writers of this show actually got to the point where it almost felt like cheating when they would go to Phil Hartman because he was so good that he just made anything and everything work and work really, really well. So it got to the point where they felt bad because it's just if they were going to Phil Hartman, that meant that they weren't making the script funny on their own and they needed him to spruce it up, essentially.
That's like the highest compliment you can give a voice actor, isn't it?
I feel like that's a pretty big damn compliment. And they actually said a lot of other nice things about him, including that they heard back to Saturday Night Live. They heard, and they didn't confirm this, but they all had heard rumor that on the set of Saturday Night Live, he was actually nicknamed The Glue because he was the glue that held his cast together when he was part of it, because they could put him in any sketch and make it work. And there's times where they were talking about how, as writers, they would have 30 skits to do, and Phil Hartman would be in like 25 to 28 of them. Damn. Because he was just that good at everything he did.
Ugh, that just makes me more upset.
It both puts a smile on my face because it's nice to think about, but then it also just makes me sad because he was just gone way too soon.
Yeah, that's just, ugh. But think about how many times he's appeared on the show just in the last few episodes we've done. Like, he's
all over this show, man. He's constantly coming in little bits here and there. I wouldn't be surprised if outside of the core Simpsons family, Phil Hartman in some way, shape, or form has the most voice acting credits.
No, it's got to be Hank Azaria.
But see, Hank Azaria hasn't really shown up as much yet. I mean, he will get there, but I mean, we've seen very few appearances of some of his bigger characters.
Well, when Hank Azaria started, he was only like 19 or 21, I forgot. Hank Azaria was super young when he first started on The Simpsons.
Such a talented dude.
Yeah. I will never... I have always loved Hank Azaria. Every time I see him in a movie or hear his voice on something, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes! But it's just... He's like right under Phil Hartman in my book on like the voice acting that I love to hear on the show all the time. Like, Phil Hartman just has him beat out, just because Hank Azaria over the years will have great, great moments.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But it's hard to beat the best.
It is hard to beat the best, and the Bigger Brothers did set Bart up with the best possible Bigger Brother. I love when he pulls away from the school with Bart on the back of his motorcycle. Martin actually says, wow, Bart's dad has really cleaned himself up.
Yeah. And it's funny because he wears the same kind of white shirt thing that Homer does. Like, you can see the comparisons between the two to show you like the best and the worst of the possibilities.
They're both wearing jeans and a white collared shirt, and it just, Tom is in significantly better shape is really all it comes to.
Yeah. And has hair.
That's true. He does have a lot of hair. Back at the Simpsons' home, Marge and Homer are going over the bills and talking about what happened with Bart. Marge is really worried. Homer's kind of letting it go, thinking, it's not that big of a deal, but Marge points out, no, Homer, he said you were a bad father. To which Homer tries to defend, but the kids nowadays, when they say bad, they mean good. And when they mean shake your booty, they mean wiggle your backside around.
Here, let me show you. No, he said, here, let me demonstrate. And Marge is like, no.
Just then, Marge comes across the phone bill, which is at a staggering $378.53.
And this is $1993, everybody.
That's a big deal. Marge instantly is like, do you know anything about this bill? And Homer breaks down saying, it's my fault, I'm so sorry, it was that record club. The first 9 were only a penny, and then they jacked up the price on me.
You remember getting those brochures all the time in the mail?
Not only do I remember, I signed up for one. I did that with a CD warehouse club when I was younger. And I have to be honest, dude, I fucking loved it. Because I got in at a good time. I got out at a good time. I ended up spending, I want to say, somewhere in the neighborhood of $30. But I got, like, so many CDs back then. It wasn't even... I would have never been able to take in that same $30 to, like, a Sam Goody and gotten anywhere close.
You would have gotten one CD for $30 at Sam Goody.
I think I legit got at least 10, if not 15 CDs for that $30. Plus, I ended up getting a bunch of freebies, like a Sports Illustrated swimsuit calendar, and, whatever else they threw at my 12-year-old self.
You were jamming out to Break Stuff by Limp Bizkit at a young age.
That was absolutely one of the CDs that came in. The other one I remember that I would have never bought, but I ended up loving, was Harvey Danger, which came out right about the time that Disturbing Behavior, that movie with, Katie Holmes. Former wife of Tom Cruise. How interesting. But yeah,
it's
with Katie Holmes was in that movie. And that Harvey Danger song was actually one of the main themes of that movie. And I love both that movie and that album to this day.
Don't kill your teachers, people.
True. It sounds like Homer did not get nearly as good of a deal, but it turns out that's not the cause of their $378 bill. Somebody has made over $300 of calls to something called the Corey Hotline.
Must be Maggie.
And just then, we see Lisa gasp and shut her door, and on the outside of her door is none other than a Corey poster, which Corey in the Simpsons world is supposed to be a mashup of both Corey Haim and Corey Feldman, who were teen heartthrobs or non-threatening teen boys, as Lisa's magazine points out, that were very, very popular in the late 80s and early 90s.
Killing vampires and what have you.
Marge and Homer confront Lisa about these phone calls and ask, why didn't you get permission? To which Lisa replies, I did. And they show a scene where Lisa tries to ask her father while he's watching television. And of course, Homer's just like, yeah, get out of my way, whatever.
Yeah, which you would think the Simpsons know not to ask Homer anything or tell him anything while he's watching TV. But at the same time, the kids would definitely exploit that to the biggest benefit whatsoever.
Yeah, if they didn't, they would have a standing rule in that house that nothing that Homer says goes, that you have to get all permissions through Marge. That would just be the only way that house would work.
But then you wouldn't have these funny, I mean, we can discuss if this is a funny beeline, but you wouldn't have so many zany adventures if you followed that rule.
True. I think I'm going to be with you on the beeline. Not the strongest of episodes, but there are some funny moments we'll get to here shortly. One other fun fact from the commentary, the creators of this episode found out later from fans of The Simpsons that there was in fact a real-life Corey hotline for one of the Coreys. They couldn't remember which one, but you could actually, back in the early 90s, call the Corey hotline, and it was something pretty similar to this from what I would presume.
Later in the episode, some of the things the hotline will say is like, here's a list of things that rhyme with Corey. Glory, story, allegory, Montessori. And let's see what's in the newspaper today. Canada stalls on trade pack.
I think my favorite one was, he just says, maybe one day we'll get married.
Yeah. That's what she's calling from, like, the school phone.
Yeah, that's a great bit. We'll get there here very, very shortly. Long story short, Marge understands and is trying to console her daughter. She gets that she just has a crush and that she's made a poor decision. So she's trying to talk her through it. She even shares that she used to have a crush on Bobby Sherman, which just makes Lisa giggle and laugh at her mother, which is kind of mean, if you think about it.
But to be fair, like, Lisa would be our age now, or a little older, actually, and having kids. And she's like, yeah, I used to have the hots for Corey Feldman. Like, her kids would be laughing at her for that.
Maybe. I could see that.
The thing I don't understand about it, though, is that Marge doesn't even get a little bit upset with her about, like, over $300? Are you kidding?
That's a big fucking bill. I'm thinking that some discipline would be in order, but to Lisa's credit, she has almost no history of getting in trouble.
She blew her wad all at once.
At this one moment, that's right. She won't be able to do anything wrong for the next 10 seasons.
4 seasons, yeah. There you go, 10. Sounds better. Whenever they run out of ideas, then she can get in trouble again.
At the end of it all, the parenting works because Marge gets what she wants. Lisa promises that they will never be billed for another call.
Crafty Lisa.
Back with Bart and his bigger brother Tom, they're going to the baseball game where it's tomato night and all fans get a tomato. I'm quite certain this won't lead to anything.
Which I just wanted to point out the amount of time that's passed here in only a few minutes, because Bart was watching Tuesday Night Live a few scenes ago, and now it's Monday night at the baseball game. So almost a week's passed.
That's going pretty quick.
I just thought that was a little strange. I mean, it's totally feasible because it would take a few days for the processing through the Big Brother program, I would assume. But for some reason, that just kind of caught me a little by surprise how many days had passed.
Bart and Tom are getting to know each other, and Tom is finding out that Bart's father was a pretty terrible guy who gambled away all of their life savings on a single hand of blackjack, in which we get this great scene where you see Homer with a beard playing blackjack, and it says, the dealer says 19. He's like, hit me, 20, hit me, 21, hit me, 22, go!
Which no casino would ever do that. Once you hit 21, they just give you the money.
True, but it's just so... I mean, he shouldn't be hitting on 19 or 20 for that matter. But, it is what it is. It's still pretty damn funny.
I mean, you have a problem with that, but you don't have a problem with him hitting on 21?
I feel as a somewhat of a blackjack player that hitting on 19 might be actually a little more offensive.
Fair enough.
Just because, to your point, they would never let that happen in real life.
Yeah.
So. It'd be like playing bowling with bumpers. I'm not worried about getting a gutter ball.
Everyone at the table would kill you if you did hit on a 19 or a 20.
Especially if you did both. Just then, the communist recruiter is introduced to the stadium, and lo and behold, those tomatoes come in handy, and they all start pelting him. But I love this. He actually is just like, it's better than Dart Night. Back with Lisa, we're at Dr. Hibbert's office where she is getting eardrops put in and needs to wait just a few minutes while Dr. Hibbert leaves the room. And as he walks out the door, it flashes to the telephone, which instantly calls to Lisa's attention.
And she's got that damn phone number memorized.
She sure does.
And the part that was ridiculous about this to me is when she actually calls the Corey hotline, it mentions, $4.95 a minute.
Oh my God! $300 really isn't that much if you put it in those terms. Except for the fact that you're just listening to things that rhyme with Corey for however long.
Allegory. Let's see. That is only an hour. Yeah, I should have done that math mentally. That means that for $300, that's only an hour on the phone. That's not that long.
Back with Tom and Bart. We're at Tom's apartment watching cartoons, and I actually really love this bit of crossover because Tom and Bart are watching Ren and Stimpy, the famous Nickelodeon cartoon that started the Nicktoons craze, along with the Rugrats and Doug.
And I gotta think, it had to be like about 93 to 95 when I started watching Nickelodeon, so as usual, The Simpsons are culturally relevant on something in their episode.
See, I was actually watching Nickelodeon from an even younger age. I even watched Nick Jr. briefly as a toddler, so it picked up right around the time that we were that age. It was almost the exact perfect age for us, in all honesty.
Yeah, we'd be about 8 in 93, right?
Right.
Yeah,
The Simpsons, if anything, was actually ahead of us, but we, like a lot of kids who grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, it was just part of our culture.
Absolutely, yeah. So, yeah, we would have been watching Nickelodeon by that time then.
Oh, absolutely. And this little bit of Ren and Stimpy is actually specifically made for The Simpsons. The Simpsons reached out to Nickelodeon and asked if they could use some of the footage, and Nickelodeon was actually very, very strict about what they would and would not allow. The Simpsons creators really wanted something, as they actually put it, they wanted it to be way more savage than what they got, is what they were going for with spoofing Ren and Stimpy. But the creators of Ren and Stimpy actually made this short clip specifically for The Simpsons that never aired in a Ren and Stimpy cartoon.
Huh, because my thought was it looked genuine when you see the footage. Like, it actually looks like Ren and Stimpy, but, like, how is this on The Simpsons? That makes no sense.
Well, that's how it was done. It was created by the Ren and Stimpy people for The Simpsons, and this was what they would get. This is what they decided they would allow, and they requested it to be a little more savage, more violent, but this was where the line was drawn, and the Nickelodeon was very, very protective of its intellectual property and its creative team. So I kind of get it to some extent that they wanted to make sure that their show was their own.
I guess the Simpsons writers wanted it to be like Itchy and Scratchy style.
I think in a lot of ways they would be very parallel to each other. I think Itchy and Scratchy is very similar to Ren and Stimpy. I mean, obviously it's Tom and Jerry, but in a lot of ways, it's more closely relatable to Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah, well, I just meant like on the violence factor. Like
exactly, yeah, that's what I mean.
They were trying to parallel between Homer and Bart watching Itchy and Scratchy, but they didn't want to be watching the same thing, especially because they've been doing that a lot, it feels like lately, where Bart or somebody somewhere else or Homer somewhere else, and they're watching Itchy and Scratchy all the time. So I assume that they were just trying to get a little clever with the metaphor.
That makes sense. At Bart's school, it is show and tell day, and Bart is talking about his hero Tom, who is an F-18 pilot. And Tom let Bart borrow his neural disruptor, who he demonstrates on Martin. Martin passes out, and Mrs. K asks, is he going to be okay? Bart assured her he's not dead, but I wouldn't give him any homework for a while.
And then Krabappel says, very good, Bart, thank you. And he goes, oh, don't thank me. Thank an unprecedented 8-year military buildup. Which I'm going to sound really, really stupid right here, especially since I tend to pick up on a lot of things in the show here. But I just realized you said they wanted Tom Cruise to play the role, and it didn't even click with me that the guy's name is Tom. Like, like it makes so much more sense now. I was wondering where they got the name Tom from while I was watching it.
Well, I actually really felt bad for Milhouse in this scene because he had to follow Bart's neural disruptor with his little horsey, which was literally just like a plastic horse, like a My Little Pony. And I think Nelson calls out from the back. He just calls him a wimp, and Milhouse kind of walks away in shame.
Yeah, I thought he said wuss or wussy, but yeah.
Wuss, yeah, it was wuss.
I mean, but you can't follow that up. You should know not to follow Bart up in the first. That's, well, it's a gamble. You're either going to look really, really great or really, really bad following Bart, depending on what day it is. He's so lackadaisical that a lot of times it's a good gamble to go right after him.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to lower that bar for you. He's going to anti-James Cameron it.
James Cameron! Damn it, that's going to be stuck in my head all day now.
You're welcome. Lisa, the good child, decided to go spend some time with her dear old grandpa. And Abe is really grateful. He's like, I'm going to show you that old people can be a lot of fun. Yes, almighty, we're going to... And he passes out right there in his recliner. And another really, really great shot. That's one thing I want to say with the Lisa B line is the humor is not necessarily great, but there's some really clever animation because I love how they had the recliner blocking the telephone. And as he falls asleep and leans back, it like instantly jumps in her view, and she jumps on it like a crack fiend. I mean, she is truly addicted to this hotline.
I like that they still had the picture up on the wall of B in the background too.
Oh, that's kind of sweet.
Yeah.
Bart's getting ready to go out with his big brother again, and as he's rushing out the door, Homer calls out to him, "Hey boy, where you going?" He says, "I'm going to the father-son picnic." "All right, have a great time." And then after Bart leaves, you see Homer go, "Hey, wait a minute." So he's kind of starting to get it. It keeps flashing back between Bart and Lisa here, so we're back at the school with Lisa and Skinner. This time Skinner is dropping her off in the peanut brittle inventory room because he knows he can trust her, while he goes and slashes 40% of the school budget.
Did you see what he cut too? He cut science and music and art.
And first aid. Yeah, the list reads out first aid, books, science, history, music and art, hot lunches, custodial, and playground. And he has first aid, books, science, music, and art crossed off. And that's when he notices the phone being dialed, and he can instantly recognize, oh my god, that's a 900 number. He goes back to the inventory room where he finds Lisa hanging on the phone listening to Corey read the newspaper, and he is very visibly angry. He's actually clenching his fist around a newspaper and it's trembling. He's so mad.
But again, Lisa's the good student, so you can't get too mad.
Bart is off hang gliding with Tom because Tom is literally the coolest fucking dude ever. They're hang gliding all over Springfield. He's pointing out the sights. They even look down at a volcano, which I wasn't aware was there, but that's pretty dope.
Yeah, Springfield's got everything.
But Bart's actually starting to feel a little bit guilty. He realizes that he does have a dad. He might not be the greatest dad, but there are kids out there that have nobody, and he's taking this guy from them Tom, though, thinking that Bart is the ultimate victim, is just touched at how unselfish Bart could be after being dealt such a rough hand, and they decide to go set down that hang glider and have some lunch.
Some froyo.
Oh yeah, frozen yogurt, you're right. Just like Lisa was caught in the scene before, this time Bart is caught because we see Homer all the way from the Simpsons' home looking up from the front doorstep with binoculars, and he sees and somehow seemingly is able to hear the entire conversation between Bart and Tom.
By the way, nice segue there. Sometimes Homer is spot on in his mischievousness. If you can't beat him, join him.
That's exactly what Homer does. He actually decides he's going to go to the bigger brother building himself and apply as a bigger brother. This is probably my favorite scene in the episode. It always is whenever Homer's having a conversation with his own brain. This time when he's asked why he wants to sign up to be a big brother, his brain is telling him, don't say revenge, don't say revenge, don't say revenge. To which Homer replies, revenge? And then my absolute favorite, his brain is like, yep, I'm out of here. And we actually hear running downstairs sounds and a door slamming.
Don't say revenge. Don't say revenge.
It's just so great. I love so much these conversations with Homer and himself, even though the more and more we see these, the more and more case I think there is that we've talked about that Homer might be downright schizophrenic or have multiple personalities or something, because there is something going on with him and his brain.
I don't think it's multiple personalities, though, because the same personality always comes back.
True.
He literally just goes brain dead for a few episodes.
But despite him saying that he's doing it for revenge, the lady behind the counter seems fine with that, and actually on her list, the acceptable reasons were spite, malice, revenge, boredom, and profit.
All the worst reasons. all the red flags for signing up to mentor a kid.
Homer starts flipping through the catalog of available little brothers, but all of them are uggos, and he's starting to think maybe he made a mistake doing this. But just then, a little boy comes up to the counter and in a pathetic little voice asks, "Do you have a big brother for me yet?" And when he's turned away, he tells him he'll be back in an hour.
And then, of course, he tugs at Homer's little heartstrings. And I actually really enjoyed the line that was coming up here after Homer decides that that's the kid that he wants to adopt, or basically.
I'll take him. Do you have him in blonde? It's such an awful fucking joke, but at the same time, it's really hilarious, especially in today's culture.
Yeah, Angelina Jolie would not like that joke.
Not at all. So again, this episode flips and flops between the Bart and Lisa storyline quite a bit, and we're back at the school, specifically in Skinner's office with Lisa and Marge. And Marge and Skinner are trying to counsel Lisa and tell her that she's got to break this addiction. Marge challenges her to go 24 hours without calling the hotline, because that way you'll know you've beat it.
She just had to make it to midnight. They might say 24 hours, but it is not midnight when they're at the school.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident they say 24 hours there, but you're absolutely right, because later on she's trying to make the countdown to midnight. So either I misread that, or
no, you know what she said?
That totally doesn't make sense.
She said make it one day.
Oh, okay. I looked too much into it. Whatever. I was too specific on that one day.
I mean, you are correct. One day is 24 hours in most math books.
But the great part about this scene is after Marge tells her daughter that she needs to try to break that habit and issues that challenge, Skinner talks about how important it is to listen to your mother. And he starts to talk about how great his mother is. And he opens up the window and we see a rendition of the Bates house with a little silhouette of Agnes Skinner sitting up in the top window, very much like Norman Bates' mother does in the movie Psycho. And there's actually a lot of similarities, if you really think about it, between the overbearing relationship of both Norman Bates and his mother and Skinner and his.
When it's not even his real mother.
Spoiler alert.
Sorry if I ruined The Simpsons for everybody.
So I guess the paperwork is processed because Homer's on his way to pick up Peppy, He passes a homeless man sleeping in a fucking trash can, and he's like, ha ha ha, that's just like Oscar the Grouch. Just so out of touch, but also a really funny moment. And then even better, when he picks up Peppy and puts him on his shoulders, he tells him, Peppy, your life is going to get better starting right now. And at that very moment, he conks his head into a pipe overhead.
Again, it's just the noise in that is so damn funny.
Dink.
It's a small child's skull. I'm done now. Did we miss where like Homer had the evil talk with Bart? I think it was after he got back from hang gliding. After Homer had seen him and he actually comes home. Just this quick little scene just really made me giggle a lot. So I wanted to go ahead and go back to that if we could for a second. When Bart comes in and Homer's like, hello, son. Where have you been?
Playing with Milhouse.
No, you haven't. You've been out gallivanting around with that floozy of a bigger brother of yours, haven't you? Haven't you? Look at me!
Dad, it just kind of happened. You're taking this too hard.
How would you like me to take it? Go ahead, Bart. Have your fun. I'll be waiting for you. I'm sorry, I can't do it.
Well, what are you going to do?
Oh, you'll see. And then Homer sips his brandy, which just it's so evil looking the whole time, but I just love that little exchange.
And this scene, as kind of creepy as it is not anywhere close to as creepy as we're going to get here in a little bit. But this was apparently a reference to a movie that I have not personally seen. The 1966 film Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, starring Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor, who formerly voiced Maggie.
Woo woo! I never saw that movie either, by the way, so I'm not sure how they correlate. But I'm sure it's spot on.
I think everything that Homer says is almost line for line the same, only in the movie it's someone's accused of being in an affair as opposed to cheating on their father's son, which
it seemed very Elizabeth Taylor-esque.
The later scene a little bit awkward, frankly. But again, let's get there here in a minute. First of all, we need to say that while hanging out with Peppy, he tells stories about how terrible Bart is. And we actually get another movie reference of a flashback where Homer is talking to Bart and Bart shoves a grapefruit in his face, which is apparently homage to the 1931 film The Public Enemy.
Grapefruit. And it wasn't a flashback, it was another made-up image in Homer's head.
It was like a made-up memory.
It was just like the blackjack thing from earlier of it. Literally, as he does that little story in his mind, he goes, grapefruit. So he can't even stay focused for 5 seconds.
They get home, and Homer is showing off the magical world they live in by demonstrating how an automatic garage door opens. Peppy's really impressed, even though it only goes up about 2 feet because it's stuck. When he asks, why does it only go up that far, Homer starts to have a meltdown and starts beating the shit out of his own garage, saying how it's a stupid piece of junk. And then he's like, well, I guess that'll be a day. We guess we should probably get you home now.
Oh, Papa Homer, I've lived in the city my whole life. I've never seen the stars.
So Homer decides they're going to have a night together looking at the stars. They're sitting out in the lawn on lawn chairs, and Homer's teaching Peppy all about the constellations, like Larry the Cowboy, and that one that looks like a Big Dipper. That's Alan the Cowboy.
It's Jerry the Cowboy and the Big Dipper looking thing. Alan the Cowboy. This is the scene.
Oh, Papa Homer, you are so learned. It's learned, Peppy. It's learned. I love you, Papa Homer.
I love you too, Pepsi.
Peppy.
And this is the scene that I always remembered as a child. Like I more than the "I love you, Pepsi" part, just the whole them being outside and Homer actually trying to spend time with this kid. Homer wouldn't do this with Bart. He wouldn't sit up on the roof and look at constellations with him.
I was about to say, this is actually a moment in this episode where Homer, despite doing this for all the wrong reasons, is actually giving this kid a really special moment.
And teaching him only the way special children get taught.
and teaching him totally false information. But regardless, I think the emotional positivity happening in this kid's life probably is better even if he's getting told about Jerry and Alan, the cowboy constellations.
You mean the Big Dipper looking thing?
Exactly. That's the one. So you're familiar with
Yes.
Alan, I see.
Yes.
Lisa is taking this challenge head on, but it's not easy, and Maggie's not helping because she's actually playing with a little toy rotary phone, which makes a little phone noise and rings, and Marge is cross-stitching or something where she has her crocheting. That's what it is. She has her crochet needles that are clicking together. And basically every sound that can be heard is driving Lisa absolutely bonkers. And after not even a minute, when she's got more than 5 hours to go, she snaps. And then she excuses herself to her room where things don't get any easier.
Or Maggie brainwashed Lisa in that very moment, because that is the moment that saved her.
It could be. Maybe it was Magical Maggie doing some behind-the-scenes dirty work.
I think she brainwashed her. She was using a toy phone, so...
We see Lisa fighting the clock. She's staring at her clock by her bed, and it says 11-something, and she's just, please, please, please be midnight already, please. And the next thing we see is Marge comes into Lisa's room, but Lisa's not there, and she actually finds her passed out with her ear to the phone. She's disappointed, but she knows Lisa tried so hard. And just then, she grabs the phone receiver, and turns out Lisa hadn't called the Corey hotline. No. She called the local time and temperature number, and it turns out she had actually made it to midnight.
And then all of a sudden, when Lisa wakes up, she doesn't have the need to feed any longer. Just like that.
Yeah, I know. It's like the quickest addiction recovery ever.
Do you remember those old phone lines, though? I used to call those all the time, where you could get, not the Corey hotline, but the...
I was going to say, were you more of a Feldman or a Hames type of guy?
The time and temperature line?
I used to call that line all the freaking time. I think it was because, this is going to make us sound so fucking old, but just when we were kids, no one had cell phones. That was not a thing. And just the idea of being able to talk to anybody on the phone was really exciting. So even if that someone you were talking to was a something in the form of a recording that just told you the exact time and current local temperature.
There was a time in my area where the hotline screwed up and everybody that called it could actually talk to each other. So literally, this is for a day and a half, dude. You would get on there and it would be like you were in an internet chat room, but everyone was actually talking.
It's like chat roulette, but
yes.
The early days.
Dude, I was fucked up for a few days, and it was so weird, because, people were having full-length conversations, multiple people were having full-length conversations, and you could actually distinguish they were different people, and it just creeped me out for a while. I kept getting my mom to listen. I was like, Mom, look, people are talking on here.
That's like when, I don't know if you ever played with walkie-talkies when you were a kid, but I used to do that all the time, and every once in a while they would just randomly get on the right signal, and they'd actually pick up people's phone calls if they had not cell phones, but wireless phones back then.
Fun times with weapons.
So things are moving forward with both Homer and Peppy, as well as Bart and Tom. Bart is looking around his room for something, and when Homer comes in, he asks, "Hey Homer, have you seen my skateboard?" To which he replies, "I gave it to Peppy."
Who the hell's Peppy?
And that's when Homer tells Bart that he's not the only one that can manipulate a non-profit organization.
I love that line too, which again, it's a little bit funnier the older you get.
And this is that scene that gets just honestly creepy as fuck. And even all the people on the DVD commentary admitted this is probably the creepiest thing they've ever done on The Simpsons. Because they do this whole bit where they're fighting and Homer's trying to talk about the good times they've had. Homer's like, "Remember the swings?" And Bart then says, "Yeah, I was faking it." And it got really awkward because it was very similar to the type of conversation someone might have if they started saying I was faking an orgasm. And Bart even starts going "Remember this? Higher! Come on! Higher, Dad! Higher!"
See, I'd never take it that way.
Really?
I'm like, Bart, but
I got that. Oh. That was, honestly, it was laid on so thick, I just don't think it could... I'm surprised you didn't pick up on that.
No, I'm saying, I understand the joke, but I'm saying, you get it, and it is what it is, but I'm not going to take it that dirty route. I thought it was funny.
Oh, see, I thought it was funny, but, with a lot of creepiness built into that funny. Only funny if you don't think about it too long.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the point of this podcast, so it gets creepy real fast.
You said long and point, so quit talking about this particular moment.
Everything builds up to the final act of the show, and both Peppy and Homer, as well as Tom and Bart, are going to Marine World, which is no longer educational.
That makes it so much better to go, right? You don't have to sit there and listen to boring spiels about fish.
Except Tom is ruining it because he's explaining to Bart that whales aren't actually fish. They're mammals like you and me. And I love Peppy and Homer sitting a few rows behind him.
Papa Homer, is that right?
Hell no. There's also a great bit right here where Homer is teasing a dolphin with a fish as he holds a hot dog. And of course, after pulling the fish away from the dolphin a few times, the dolphin gets smart and takes the hot dog from Homer. Which, this is actually apparently a recycled bit from the Tracy Ullman shorts, in which something very similar happened, only it was with a gorilla at the zoo, as opposed to a dolphin at Marine World.
Okay. I like how after that, Homer immediately bear hugs the dolphin, and like security's running up to grab him.
He's like trying to fight it, to get his hot dog back. Just then, Bart notices Homer and decides to hide, but unfortunately he hides on a double-sided aquarium glass where Homer can easily see him. Homer's then talking to his son, and Tom comes up and reminds Bart he's not supposed to talk to strangers.
For your information, I'm his father.
You mean the drunk gambling father?
That's right. And who might you be?
And of course, Tom has heard nothing but how awful Bart's father is, with a bunch of made-up stories, or at least exaggerated stories, I should say. And Homer receives a punch in the face from Bart's bigger brother. And that starts a fight, and I don't care what you say, this fight beats the dog shit out of any Peter Griffin versus any animal, let alone that damn chicken fight that won't end. This is a far superior fight scene in a cartoon. It goes on for quite a while, but definitely not anywhere near the edge of too long.
I just love that he grabs the starfish after the tank smashes on his face and throws them like ninja stars at Tom, and then Tom dodges them, grabs them, puts them back in a tank, and then they're eaten by a shark.
There you go, little buddies.
Doe! I've always loved that bit. Yeah, and Tom actually says doe. And see, that's the thing with the whole Tom Cruise storyline. It's like, if I saw that my character got to say doe, wouldn't you want to do it just on that alone?
The Tom Cruise thing is baffling to me.
I can't get over this now.
Homer's got a very creative fighting style. He points away from Tom and says, "Look over there, it's another underprivileged child." And when Tom looks away, Homer punches him in the face and gets the upper hand.
He's a smart guy when it comes to fighting. Kick him in the family jewels.
The cops get a call that there is a fight happening at the aquarium, and Wiggum asks, do they still sell those frozen bananas at the aquarium? And when he gets confirmation that they do, he decides they should roll out to the scene.
Let's roll.
Kent Brockman has gotten a very early news report about the fight at the aquarium. Early reports say that at least one of the fighters is actually a giant lizard.
Do we have a source? A bunch of drunken frat boys. I could use some names.
I.P. Freely?
Just a great little bit.
Tom and Homer are fighting everywhere. They fight through an antique store, which Tom actually leaves at one point and has to point out to Homer that he's just breaking antiques at this point, and Tom's not there anymore.
Yeah, he walks outside and you just hear Homer going like, ugh, ugh, crashing all this stuff inside.
They get back outside, start fighting again, and actually make it all the way to the Springfield Gorge, which we find out from the sign is the third most beautiful gorge in all of the states. They actually roll all the way down to the bottom of the gorge, which I imagine Homer has the upper hand because that's basically home court advantage.
He's done it twice at this point, right?
Exactly. But when they get back into the streets, I swear, I couldn't find this anywhere. This is just me personally, but I swear they do a shot that looks exactly like the opening demo screen from the arcade game Street Fighter 2, in which you see a blonde guy in a white shirt reaching back to punch you, and you're basically from the perspective of right behind the head of the person that's about to be punched. And Tom looked exactly like, I looked it up online to find it, and I swear it looks exactly like that shot where he's reaching back. And I don't know if that was by mistake or on purpose, but if you're watching this episode, look at that. If you've ever played that game, it immediately popped out to me. That was the first thing I thought of. Did you catch that at all?
I never had that connection before, but like I know exactly what both look like in my head, and they do look very similar. I've seen that Street Fighter 2 opening. It's where the two guys, it doesn't look anything like the actual Street Fighter game, but the two guys are in the streets and there's a whole crowd in a big building behind them, and then that one guy just cocks back and punches, like Miles said, and you're behind the view of the other character. But yeah, that looks a lot like that. They look very similar.
I can't get the image out of my head at this point. It was spot on. Tom ends up winning the fight when he punches Homer and he falls very, very uncomfortably looking over a fire hydrant. And he actually says, this hurts way more than it looks. And it looked fucking bad.
Here's my thing about this. We're going to see Homer in the next scene, and I know we have a few more things to talk about before there. And after all the crap that's just happened to Homer, he's completely fine sitting on the couch in the next scene. He is unbreakable.
Well, I mean, Bart does offer to get him a beer.
He is
That'll
unbreakable, though. I'm saying it. Maybe the beer is what makes him unbreakable. I don't know.
It's his spinach.
Yep.
Tom and Peppy are both depressed because Tom no longer has a little brother and Peppy no longer has a big brother. Tom has no one to keep him company on the ride home. Peppy doesn't even have a ride. Tom just bought a big ham that is now going to go to waste because he has no one to share it with. Peppy is like, please don't talk about food. I'm so hungry. They shake hands, wish each other luck, and start to walk away. And that's when Bart has an idea. It's actually kind of sweet. I mean, It's very funny because it's so stupid. But Bart actually grabs both of their hands and places them in each other. And we see a silhouette shot of Tom and Peppy walking away. And these two truly do deserve each other. This was the fit that should have been from the get-go.
But would never happen in this day and age because you can't hold a small child's hand who you aren't related to.
Oh, that actually reminds me, during the hang gliding scene, there was a line where when Bart was saying how he doesn't deserve Tom and he should go be with another child, Tom is like, Bart, I could kiss you if I didn't have to sign documents specifically stating I wouldn't.
Yeah. It's always a good line.
And we end on another really sweet scene with, this time, Homer and Bart. A sweet for them type of scene, yes. I should say.
The Simpsonian
it's a
sweet.
Very Bart and Homer scene.
Simpsonian sweet is what I'm calling it.
For sure. We hear Bart, as I mentioned, ask his dad if he needs another beer. Homer takes the beer, and then Bart has a few questions. You remember when Tom had you in that headlock, and you told him that you were a hemophiliac, and when he let go of you, you kicked him in the back? Could you teach me how to do that?
Which he already knows how to do it because he just repeated the line.
Well, Homer replies, oh yeah, it's easy. You just have to shriek like a woman, and when they look away in disgust, that's when it's time to get to back kicking. He also says, and then when they're down, kick them in the ribs, step on their neck, and run like hell. One last little bit of trivia from the director's commentary that I thought was really neat. That entire last sequence was entirely improvised by Dan Castellaneta and Nancy Cartwright as Bart and Homer, and they put that together between the two of them in the moment, and I think it came out really, really great. As you put it,
wow.
One of the most Simpsonian sweet moments we get. Not the most, but it's up there in terms of that moment, especially between Bart and Homer.
I mean, it's this whole episode, the storyline between Bart and Homer, and then Homer and Peppy and Tom and Bart all parallel each other. So, like, you got that sweet father-son moment with Tom and Peppy at the end. So they had to come back and parallel that with Homer and Bart's version of the same thing. So, like, I really commend the writers and the story arc on this episode for doing the right kind of parallels. Like, it gave you the best and the worst of each scenario. And it makes logical sense. Like, I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't even think about doing that when I'm doing a cartoon show, but like they are so perfect about it.
Well, we often talk about the Simpsons reset that they have to do. Whatever chaos they create for the episode, at the end of the episode, they have to hit the reset button and bring it all back to normal so we can start over again next week. And we will sometimes complain that reset just comes way out of nowhere, or it's too sudden or too easy. But I think this is one of the best examples of a great Simpsons reset because, as you mentioned, all of the storylines just flow so well and parallel each other so well, even to some extent with Lisa and the way that she's caught with the Corey hotline in the same way that Bart and Homer catch each other essentially cheating on one another. It's a really great ebb and flow to this episode, and when it does reset at the end, you aren't upset, or I didn't have any reservation whatsoever. In fact, I was really happy for both Tom and Peppy and Bart and Homer in their own unique ways.
Why would you say they were cheating on each other after you just talked a little while ago about how that one scene grossed you out?
Because that's essentially what was happening. That's my point.
Stop putting your point all over the place.
But that does bring us to the end of Brother from the Same Planet. Richie, was there anything else that you or that book of yours wanted to point out before we get out of here?
My book, The Simpsons, A Complete Guide to Our Favorite Family, will point out a couple things. One of the articles in Non-Threatening Boys magazine is Meet Joey. There was a billboard with Krusty's likeness on it and a very foreign caption in Pepe's neighborhood. On a personal note, I just want to say, I haven't done my themes in a while since like season 1 where I did it all the time, but this episode definitely had a theme where you want to listen to both sides of a story before you judge somebody, because both with Homer and Pepe, Homer was talking ill of Bart, and Pepe was just believing him in what he was saying, thinking Bart's a terrible person. Well, he's not seeing the other side, and in the same parallel, Bart and Tom were going through that, where Tom hated Homer before he ever met him, but he's only hearing Bart talk really crappy things. So just when you're out there, make sure you all listen to both sides of a story, and don't just judge somebody based off of what one of your friends says or something like that. But beyond that point, this episode was still very, very good. I enjoyed the crap out of this episode. I always have. It just, to go off opposite you a little bit, it just didn't quite get up to where I remember it being, because I remember this episode so fondly. And I think on my regard, it's just because it took too long to get into the Tom Pepe storyline. Once Pepe shows up, this episode just shoots and skyrockets up on how much you enjoy it.
And as I mentioned earlier, I love this episode as a kid, and I love it now. I think it meets expectations, not necessarily exceeds expectations like some episodes have, but that will do it for Brother from the Same Planet. Richie, what do you want to plug?
As always, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at theWiz_kid23. Also, while you're on Twitter, go ahead and give our show a follow. That's at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY.
And you can keep up with all things Best Darn Diddly at bestdarndiddly.com. That's DIDDLY. And you can find me on Twitter at MrMostDaysOff. Also, for you wrestling fans, come and check me out on Voices of Wrestling, where Chris Novembrino and I do Lucha of the Hidden Temple. It's a weekly Lucha Underground recap. Other than that, I once again just want to thank everyone for listening, and Richie and I will be back with you again next week for the episode I Love Lisa.
I love you, Pepsis.
Until next time, be cromulent to each other.
Hey everybody, this is Lubes!
What?
Who? What?
Kinda get caught up in the moment, you know what I mean?
Jesus Christ. Alright,
I'm sorry, man.
Take 2.
Hey everybody, this is Goose!
And I'm Ripkin!
And I'm Jenny Bean.
And you can follow us on Twitter at the Wrestle...
Whoa,
No
dude.
more.
Shit, son of a
Right.
bitch!
You pulled the Goose there.
God damn.
Yeah.
Alright, sorry, man. Take 3.
Hey everybody, this is Goose!
And I'm Ripkin!
And I'm Jelly Bean. Oh, man.
God,
now I
son
want
of a bitch, now I want jelly
Jelly
I want jelly
beans.
beans too, besides
Okay.
the disgusting kind.
We seriously, we got
I'm
this.
just gonna eat some of these jelly beans.
No.
Nom noms.
Fuck, those are good. Okay, take 5, guys.
Hey everybody, this is Goose!
And I'm Ripkin!
And I'm Jenny Bean.
And we are the Derailers!
And you can find us on Twitter at the Derailers, or you can find us on iTunes, Buzzsprout, and YouTube.
Make sure to leave a comment, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, smash the bell, do whatever you gotta do to keep this train on a track, because you know we won't, folks.
We also happen to be on Instagram.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We're on Instagram at Wrestle Nerds. You can follow me at Little Sock Puppets. You can follow Ripkin at
Ripkin WN. But more importantly, listen on iTunes, Buzzsprout, and YouTube. Derailers!